Hi. Have you ever looked at any charts and graphs and infographics and just been really confused about what information you're supposed to get out of it? Let me help you with that with today's informational writing skills video, visual ways to convey information. Here's our proficiency rubric for today's video. As always, you can pause to read all 4 sections, but just know by the end of this video, we hope you can consider yourself proficient or highly proficient. Our agenda for today is introducing visual media, different types of visual media, data interpretation, and creating visual information. To keep this video as short as possible, I will not explain some concepts in detail, so if you want more information on a specific concept, you can look it up later. Let's talk about introducing visual information. What is that? It's just using images, graphics, and colors to show information. So this will look like converting data into visual formats that are easier to understand, communicating complex ideas more effectively, and allowing audiences to grasp information quickly. So there's different types of visual media. Today we're mostly going to talk about graphs, charts, and infographics, but just know you can also have diagrams, maps, or interactive digital displays as types of visual media. We're going to talk about bar graphs first. So bar graphs are called that because the data is shown as bars, as you can see. Bar graphs are great for comparing quantities and comparing different categories together. They tend to show exact numerical differences, and it's really great for highlighting comparisons between topics and content. And then we have line graphs. You'll notice they're similar to bar graphs, except instead of using bars, you're using dots and then lines that connect them. Sometimes you can have one line you're looking at on your graph, but sometimes you might have multiple that you're looking at. So line graphs are really great for tracking changes over time. So if you want to show trends or progression, line graphs are great. They will display continuous data. That means you can make your chart a little bit longer and add another dot and connect the line to it to show new information. So it's really great for scientific and economic data, and it is going to help you predict future patterns. Pie charts are going to look a little different. We don't have our X and Y axis like we did with the others. We just have a little circle and then these slices, which is why we call them pie charts. They look like slices of pie. That should equal up to 100% if you add all of this together. So as you can guess, pie charts are great for showing percentages and proportional data. So if you want to display parts of a whole and compare how they are compared to 100%, so comparing percentages, pie charts are the chart for you. We do suggest that you limit to 5 or 6 categories total for the pie chart, so your slices don't get too small and hard to read. And then finally, we're going to talk about infographics. So these are just examples. You'll notice you can have simple infographics like the one on the right, where you're really just showing pictures and then captions underneath the pictures. But you can have very complex infographics like the one on the left, where you're not only showing text and pictures, but you also have different graphs and diagrams inside. So you can take some of the graphs we talked about and put them in an infographic with more images and words. So this is a lot about storytelling with data, so you're combining text, images, and graphics to make complex information more engaging. So it's really useful for social media or presentations where you're trying to get a lot of information out there as quickly as possible. But because you're putting a lot of information in one place, it will require careful design and clear messaging. So now that we've talked about the 4 probably most popular graphic designs, visual designs, let's talk about how to interpret that visual data. So here's some questions to ask about visual data. You can ask, are all of the titles, labels, and keys present? What is the graphic about? Do all parts of the graphic make sense? What am I supposed to learn from the data? Did this come from a credible source? And what patterns or discovery do I notice in the data? Some common mistakes you'll see with visual data. You might see misleading sizes where things are bigger or smaller than they actually are supposed to be in real life. You might have incomplete data where you don't have enough information to know what's going on because you don't have all the facts. On the other hand, you might have overcrowded graphics where there's so much information that it's hard to really see what you're supposed to know. And then there's a lack of clear legend, so sometimes if you're color coding things or using symbols to show different stuff, they usually want to have a box off to the side that explains what each color or symbol means. If you don't have that there, then it's very hard to understand what the information is. Here's some examples of bad graphics. If you look at the one on the left, you'll actually see there are no pictures. It's just words in different colors and arranged differently. And you'll notice there's a lot of words. This is what we mean by too much information or overcrowding your data. There's a lot to look at, and it's kind of hard to keep track of what you're supposed to know. So this is too much information, not a good graphic. The one on the right actually gives us not enough information. You'll notice that the title just says totals, but we don't know totals of what. And we don't have a label for these numbers down here, so we don't know if 25 or 50 means percent, or dollars, or minutes, or students. So this information is useless because we don't have all the information we need. So keep that in mind when you're creating visual information. Firstly, you want to make sure you're choosing the right medium, so consider what kind of data you're showing, what's the purpose of your data, who your audience is, how much data you're working with, and where and how it will be viewed, because all of those things will affect the best option for you. So think about if you're comparing numbers, then I would say bar graphs are the best visual data to use. If you want to look at changes over time, then use a line graph. If you want to talk about percentages that add up to 100%, then make a pie chart. And then if you have a lot of complex information and maybe need to use multiple graphs together, then an infographic might be your best option. When you create visual information, a few tips to make sure you're doing it correctly. Please use colors and icons to make it more interesting. You want to make it not overwhelming for people, but make sure that people are like, wow, this looks great. So use enough color and icon to make it interesting. Don't overload your visual with too much information. It's tempting to do a lot of color and symbols and words, but like you saw in that graphic a few slides ago, sometimes you can get overloaded and it doesn't look good and it's very confusing. So just make it as simple as you can while still being factual, and use digital tools to help you. So Canva and Google Sheets and Microsoft Excel are very commonly used, but there are other sources out there to help you make your charts and graphs quickly. And then when you create your visual, please make sure you have a clear title, that you have labels and captions, a legend or key if needed, a source or citation of where you got your facts, so you're giving credit where credit's due, accurate data, and a good visual design. So let's look at an example both of interpreting data and then creating data. So here's the graph we're going to be looking at. So we notice it does have a title and labels, so it's average gym goers per day each month, and we know that these numbers mean average gym goers a day, and we know that these are the months of the year. The title does tell us what this graph is going to be about. It's average gym goers per day each month. The graph makes sense. We can probably just logically assume that in colder months we're going to see more people in the gym. In the warmer months we're going to see fewer people in the gym. And that's actually what we notice, is that it is more popular to go to the gym during colder winter months and less in the summer. Unfortunately, there's no source listed, so we actually don't know if this is credible. Logically, common sense speaking, this feels right, but if we don't have a source listed, you might be careful on actually using this. And then one other thing we can use with this information, knowing that people are going more in the winter, is we can notice that January is the highest month with the most gym goers, and we can assume that since a lot of people do New Year's resolutions to get healthier, this is probably why January is the highest month. Now, if you are creating data, let's look at this raw or visual data. This is raw data of just information. So it looks like it's snack choices among 100 students. We've got different snack types, and then how many students voted for each. So there's actually two different graphs you could use here. You can use a pie chart and show it this way, especially with it adding up to 100 students. It makes it easy to do the numbers. You could also do the bar graph as well, and also show the same amount of information. And really it's up to you which one you'd rather use. If you want something a little bit more colorful, maybe a little bit smaller, and you want to compare percentages specifically, then I would do the pie chart. If you just want to compare some specific snacks together and you don't need as much color, then the bar graph might be better for you. And then just to let you know, when you are creating visual data, you can use the Google Sheets function. Canva's pretty easy, but this one works as well. So how you can make graphs or charts in Google Sheets, you can see my information right here in the corner. You can click Insert up here in the top left corner, scroll down to Chart and click on that. This will open your chart editor, and then you can pick your chart type from here. And Google Sheets is pretty good about creating this for you without you having to do much else over here. But you've got other ways to customize if you want to do something a little different. And that is visual ways to convey information. Hopefully you feel more proficient or highly proficient than you did at the beginning of the video. And hopefully next time you see a graph, you're going to be so excited that you'll say, "Look at this graph!" So go out there, interpret some graphs, make some graphs, and have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.